then the question came in, can we just make our own product as open source? Will it make any kind of sense? No, it is. It's not, because again we developed the App Store for our own purpose. So it's not something that anybody can come and pick our application and host it in their site. So it has to be very generic, and the design has to be pragmatic enough so that you can only use the certain portion of that application and develop your own stuff on top of it. So these all considerations we took and try to design our own stuff. So I think probably we are in a situation that we have something in mind, but we are not yet completed. So then the advantage we have is the domain expertise. We have been doing this stuff for some time, so we know what it means to develop an app store, the pain of developing kind of app store applications, the operator-like expertise, the telco expertise, and different other expertise, which I think that's the biggest advantage for us to drive this open source initiative through, right? So it's pretty obvious, the design, I would say, but for some reason it never picked up in the past. So we have this mChoice Vishma core, that's the middle box, I would say, and the in between the operations API and the Vishma API is the meat of the Vishma we have come up with. The different gadgets Sayantan was talking about during the UI exploration. I will be talking that in detail in the next coming slide. So we have these four major components, right? Starting from the left, we have this publishing API, where you can publish your applications from different systems, right? You don't have to go to the Vishma UIs and publish. You can just integrate Vishma with whatever the applications you have already. And then the core engine, Vishma core engine, where you have this profiling and the object relational mapping and stuff like that. And then the plugins. The plugins or gadgets is something like you can always develop your own and put it there. Like what Leshani asked, you can develop your consumption plugin and put it there if you want. So that's the flexibility it has. And operations API is, I think it's pretty straightforward. This is the UI component of Vishma. Like what Sayantan was talking about, or browsing, is one of those Vishma operations UI you could ever think of, right? And there are a few other UIs even we internally came up with and then decided to go ahead with the one Sayantan showed to you. So you can develop your own UIs. That's the model I'm trying to come up with here. So that's the overall architecture of Vishma. So let's get into the details of every portion. So Vippa, can you move to the next slide? Yeah, thanks. So this is the core engine, right? The core engine has two major parts. The one is the plugins. The other one where you keep the information, like user profiling, VAS publisher profiling, operator profiling, right? So the engine will be associated with the source of truth, all the user information, VAS information, operator profiling. For example, you publish an application into the system, then the application detail will be saved in the VAS publisher profile, right? Then engine will process all this information, or rather mediate all this information. It will get the details from the publishing API, put it there in the databases for all the profilers, and then enable the services of giving away the required information asked by those the plugins, right? So this is the core engine. It's a kind of very high-level architecture. So when it gets into more detail, you'll have to come up with every components, even the class diagrams and all. So we are here to do this. So operations API, right? It's interesting. So I don't think anybody can come up with a general operations API or other UI, because either the UIs are something in App Store which is very subjective to every other company, right? The one we showed is for the value-added services, and we more or less covered most of those business cases associated with any app store kind of applications. But still, then Leshani picked up there's a issue like consumption part is missing. So likewise, there can be number of business cases which could be missing here, and still you can develop your own and put it there. So that's something the Vishma UI part. So how the beauty here is, you just have to work on the UIs, I would say, because the operations API, which will be delegating all the tagging, categorization, associated content and all, and the operations API will be exposing those information. So you just have to pull those information and build your own UIs. You don't have to worry about the internals of them, how you handle them, how you keep the information in the database and so forth. So that's the beauty of this, the operations UI, right? Can you move on? Yeah. Publishing API. It's again interesting, right? The publishing API, it's a server portion of the Vishma. It's listening for the requests from different systems. So it supports different protocols. It could be HTTP or HTTP over. It could be web services. Can be different other APIs. And the publishing API enables you to introduce your own APIs as well. So that kind of model is being built here. So in this scenario, we have mChoice SDP, mChoice Soltura, and those two are Send Mobile's applications which are using a kind of which are using this Vishma product. At the same time, anybody can develop your own system and still integrate with Vishma. You don't have to go to the UIs and enter the information there. Instead, you integrate with Vishma seamlessly using this publishing API. So that's the publishing API all about. So can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so those are just very high level architecture discussion, because we just kicked off the meeting, so there's still a long way to go. We have the experience and we have done a kind of work, so we can still speed up the development and design, but still there are lots of design to be done. So we thought of kind of technology stack we would be using in this system. Maven, so any open source application would require Maven kind integration framework, and I believe these open source contributors would be interested in using Maven anyway. Then I would say as a wow factor in our technology stack, it's this introduction of using Scala. There were lots of discussion internally going on whether we should use Java or even Ruby or any programming language. Then we ended up using Scala here because it has the right balance, we still believe, because Java probably we might be used to Java anyway, but using Scala you might have to write half a code of what Java would require. So that's an advantage, and it has the beauty of combining the object-oriented model and the functional model. It has the right balance which Java doesn't have, and it's statically typed. So which is very important, and which is one of the reasons why we didn't go ahead with Ruby or Groovy here. So those are the reasons why we were using Scala, and I still believe the having Scala programming language probably enable the X factor to these technical portions. Then the MVC development, the UI development. For this particular product, for the UIs already designed and showed, we are still yet to decide on the MVC framework, whether we going ahead with Spring MVC or the Portal MVC framework which Spring offers, which is on JavaNet, again an open source, or rather LiftWeb. LiftWeb is Scala based web framework. So it's not yet decided, and then again it's probably irrelevant for some of you, because you anyway going to use your own UIs and probably develop your own app store on top of the Vishma core engine. So few people might be interested in this and few people not. ORM mapping, that's part of the core engine. We will be using either Hibernate or JPA.